I'm Allie Zendrian, Editor-in-Chief of Brand News, and this is the Financial Services News You Might Have Missed podcast. This is where I uncover news gems that may not have gotten their full chance to sparkle, and I dust them off a little bit. I'm joined by my trusted co-host and personal financial advisor, Brandon Galisi of Galisi Financial. Brandon, super excited for the weather that you have over there and the fact that you're in a t-shirt. I'm just a teeny tiny bit jealous.
Yeah, that's set or not brag. My wife and I are getting our absolute money's worth of living in Southern California. I just got back from a walk with Perla, our dog, and it's like 75 degrees, sunny. So I'm in my golf polo and I've got some shorts on, and it's just beautiful out. So but again, being from the East Coast in West Virginia, I do know what shoveling snow is like, and I've had weekends. And it seems like most places got absolutely dumped with snow this past weekend. So I understand that, but I don't miss the four seasons. People will say, oh, when you move away, you'll miss the four seasons. I'm 5 years in now, almost 5 years of being in Southern California. And I can assure you, I haven't missed the seasons, so to speak. So yeah, and I'm blessed. We're blessed out here.
I mean, maybe those are the people who like, oh, I missed that dusting like right around Christmas. So you feel like, oh, it's just magical with the snow. And then that comes with like, oh, by the way, and you could get a foot, 18 inches. And you also have to deal with that. So I guess there's no magical, you just get like a little bit of it, but not winter.
Right. It's like no four seasons, but snow on Christmas. I think most people will be happy. But if we want to drive to snow, we can drive. And there's been times there's a spot we can hike to from here, and we can see the ocean, but then also look in the distance and see snow-capped mountains, which just kind of speaks to the topography and the geography of California, where, I mean, there is a joke, but people have done it. You could surf, skateboard, and snowboard all on the exact same day, depending on the time of year in Southern California, which, I mean, I could probably see snow within 2 hours, believe it or not. Which is,
my mind has been blown.
Yeah, which again, I think is a reason why people do like California so much, because you could love the mountains and you could love the snow. There's that. You could love the ocean. Of course, there's that. We, of course, have desert climate as well. So it's just the diversity of topography and climate inside, just within a couple of hours even, clearly is quite drastic. And again, I had no idea until I moved out here that it was like that. But yeah, it is pretty unique.
I don't know if like California State Board of Tourism or anybody wants to like sponsor this portion of the podcast, but if you are, we would welcome any and all funds.
Well, yeah, we'll take it. I do love where we live now in South OC.
So we're going to kick off this week with AtoZ Communications client Asset Map, who just completed their first two AI integrations with both Jump and then Contio's MessageOS. Asset Map is the premier visual financial planning conversation tool, and its integration with these powerful AI platforms enables what's mentioned in meetings to really come alive for both planners and clients alike through Asset Map. So advisors would be able to approve these recommended changes to clients' visual financial futures. So in other words, if I tell you something in our meetings, either MessageOS or Jump would suggest to you, hey, why don't you update Allie's map to include blah, blah, blah. And then you could either go in and say, no, that's not what Allie said, or yeah, absolutely, please do that for me. So I thought that was rather interesting, and it's also great to see the advisor oversight of that. For those not familiar with Contio, I don't know where you've been, but this is Aaron Klein's new venture that makes sure that the right people are in the right room, literally and figuratively, for meetings, as well as having good game plans to make the meetings productive and not just a total use of time. So, Brandon, with that dump of stuff, what did you think of that?
I think this is a wonderful use of AI. We're constantly talking about this on the podcast. How do we let AI do what AI is best at? And I think note-taking right now, it is fantastic. And then taking it a step further, which is what they're doing here with Asset Map, taking this conversation that now we're able, I know for me, I've been using AI Note-Taker the last 3 to 6 months more heavily. And I've felt so much more present in the meetings, because before, when I'm taking notes manually, I want to write down sometimes the exact words or phrase that you said. Not, Allie mentioned something like X, but your specific verbiage, so that we can maybe update your statement of financial purpose or recommend a next step in your language and not just mine. But with that, if I'm having to write stuff down or type stuff in, human beings in general aren't the best at multitasking. Some stuff could potentially get lost because of it. So I think you have AI note-taking, does an incredible job of that. But then I think this takes it a step further in a positive way of then taking some of the structured data if we're talking about specific numbers, and then still having that human oversight to make sure it's not just updating a plan with random numbers that we might have been discussing, but confirms, yes, this is correct. We do want to update this particular piece of information. So I feel like it's going to really streamline a lot of advisors' processes and, again, give them more time. And I think even Adam Holt said this in the article, but allow advisors to focus on what matters most and not so much time on the data entry.
So you brought up a really good point of, I hadn't really thought of the fact that, yes, if you're typing away, unless I have the awareness to stop speaking so that you can finish typing, something's going to get lost in translation. So it seems like then with this is really giving an opportunity for a continuous fluid conversation and for there to be more banter back and forth versus the, oh yeah, I'll just like wait, give Brandon a second and let him finish what he's doing. I forgot whatever it was that I was going to say. Oops, I guess like we lost whatever big move I was supposed to make that I needed to tell you about.
Exactly. Like you just said there, it's just more free flowing instead of, because even if you did stop so I could type down exactly what you said, the conversation's going to feel choppy. And of course, I'd like to think you'd be appreciative of, I'm trying to get down what you wanted to say, but the conversation's not going to flow as much. So now for me, I even have less stress as an advisor, knowing that I'm very confident in my AI tool. I'm still going to write down the very, very important things. Again, if we're like, hey, we need to execute this strategy. Okay, I'm going to make sure I document that too, just in case. But unless it's a really, really big thing, I'm really confident that AI is going to catch it, and I'll see my next steps after the meeting. I can even follow up and ask the AI, hey, what were we talking about here, to refresh my memory, get that additional context. So I think for advisors that aren't yet using and at least an AI note taker, again, this is taking it in a positive direction, even one step further, which is amazing. But if you're not there yet, at least start using. Even the Zoom companion is going to be better than nothing, because again, I just love being more present with clients. It's good for the clients. It's good for the advisor. It's good for the team. I think it's just a win across the board. And especially with the financial ones, we don't have to worry as much about compliance because they're built specifically for financial firms. So we're not near as concerned about compliance risks that we might think of maybe more generic AI type tools.
Yeah. So I was trying to think if there's any way that this could either not be used the right way or wouldn't interpret human language the right way. So have you had any instances? The only way that I could think of really was if somebody is wholly sarcastic, like every word that comes out of their mouth is not what they mean, then I guess AI may have an issue. But otherwise, it seems like you're exactly right. This is just streamlined, getting you the information that you need, and you're confirming it, and then we all move forward.
Right, because I think you hit that nail on the head at the end there. We're confirming it still. I'm not just going to send out a blind email of, because you can have these AI tools essentially have a template and even get ready to send a customized email right after. I haven't used that as much, but yeah, if you just didn't, as a human, didn't check anything and say, we just sent a follow-up email and I said, hey, Allie, here's what we talked about and are the next steps, but I don't check it first. Yeah, maybe something wonky gets said in there because one of us made a joke and it thought we were serious on something in particular. And then that would make the follow-up email then seem, well, Brandon didn't even review this, did he? Versus, I think, again, when you have that quick human oversight, but it's still going to save so much time compared to trying to take all the notes down. And then even on the recall, like I said, being able to say, hey, what did Allie and I talk about the last meeting on January 9th? Being able to pull up that context, like, oh, right, that's what it was. And then take whatever next step I need to. So yeah, I think minimal. What about, are you using any sort of AI even in your client meetings?
To be honest, I have to organize my AI because at one point I had 2 different tools and then had, in some cases, 2 note takers showing up, which is obviously a little embarrassing.
All the notes.
Yeah, I know, the notes of the notes. So yeah, I have a note taker typically attending my meetings, and same thing. I feel like so-and-so said this, but I just want to check, and it's been great for that kind of situation. I haven't yet come across an instance where it doesn't capture something correctly, but I'm also not heavily reliant on it.
Yeah. Again, I think that's where the issue would be. If you're 100% reliant on it and barely checking it, that's where there's going to be issues. But if you're using it like we're talking about, I think very, very small chance of issues. Again, especially since we're talking about the compliant tools, at least for the financial advisor side.
So our second piece of news is Capital One's acquisition of Brex. Brex is a platform that offers business credit cards and cash management tools for tech companies. The $5.5 billion deal shows that a fintech is being acquired by a legacy or traditional financial services firm So I know that that's something that we've talked about before on the podcast, of basically how traditional finance is going to evolve, or do they just acquire, which this sort of answered. So I was curious what you thought of this.
I find it interesting that, at least as far as even traditional banks, Capital One to me is almost, or is at the most innovative end of that category. So I don't have a direct relationship with Capital One, but I mean, I watch sports and they have a lot of Capital One commercials on TV. We can almost always remember the what's in your wallet, and their branding is great. They've got even the Capital One cafes, which I would guess there's probably one at least in New York City, but there's one out here in Irvine, California as well. I've only been in one time. Like I said, I don't have a direct banking relationship with them, but it at least seems from a consumer perspective that they are trying to innovate. Out of all the banks, again, we'll call it quote unquote traditional, because they still are definitely one of the much larger ones. Wasn't as surprised because it seems to be their MO to be doing more innovative type things. So I thought that was pretty cool. But what were some of your key takeaways?
So first of all, I should give credit to Nicole Casperson for sharing this news, which was how I saw it. So thank you, Nicole, for sharing that. So it seems like among the reasons that Capital One was so interested in Brex is its user base, and then being able to have that as part of the Capital One family. But when I was reflecting on it, it felt like, okay, well, don't we assume that throw out the names, like the Goldman Sachs, the JP Morgan, all of those basically have everybody that you could want, really? And so then to me, for this to say like, well, but there's somebody over off to the side and they've got a sizable population, and they're people that the traditional banks are interested in, it seemed like banking is a little bit more bifurcated than what we gave it credit for being, versus just this centralized, like there are, name it, like 5 banks that seem to own the world.
That's a great point, because, yeah, I mean, I agree. It seems like those 5 or so banks do own pretty much everything, but I don't know, I'm trying to think, even with clients, like I have some clients that will have some of the big banks. I typically recommend folks, if they have access to something like a credit union. I'm blessed my dad was in the Navy, therefore I get Navy Federal Credit Union, which is pretty sweet because you basically get big bank vibes with the services of a credit union, which is pretty cool. Because I think the big banks are really going to have to innovate, because if they don't, I mean, even a lot of the high yield savings accounts, very rarely does a traditional bank have a decent one. Mm-hmm. But even, again, why I think Capital One is more innovative, depending on which, at your times, this, I'm not saying you need to go and get a Capital One account, but oftentimes they're at least in the running whenever you're looking at high yield savings accounts on a site like NerdWallet or Bankrate or things like that. They have some of those type of offerings, which, again, maybe that's why for me they feel more innovative, because, again, I think the big banks, they're either going to need to do mergers like this or figure something out, because I just don't see who's going to pay a monthly fee for checking if they don't have X amount of dollars coming in each month, or all the rules that are associated with zero fees on a lot of the traditional big banks.
Yeah. Although it's funny, all those zero fees, it's like, well, there's zero fees, except if I don't keep your minimum in here. God forbid, if it's off by a second, there's a fee. Yeah, zero fee, please.
Right. And consumers have, I think, starting to see through that, whereas like zero fee, but then there's an asterisk, and then it, feels like you need to read a calculus problem to then figure out what the requirements are to avoid being charged that fee. And then consumers just, again, for basic stuff, no one wants to pay a fee for a simple checking account. Now, if you're doing stuff like wire transfers or other things, yeah, there's going to be fees associated with that. Everyone understands that. But like, you're just holding my cash. In fact, you're lending out my cash. You're already making money on my cash. Why do you need a certain dollar amount in here? Why does it have to be so convoluted? Like, let me just keep my cash. So again, I think they're definitely going to have to change. Right.
Well, I guess it beats holding it under the mattress, right? Like
that is true.
So the next press release that we're going to talk about, I noticed based on its headline, it said Cryptocurrency Market Trends and Global Forecast Report 2025 to 2035, Millennial-Led Participation and the Emergence of Crypto as a Viable Career Path, Redefine Financial Sector Perceptions. This was according to ResearchandMarkets.com. In the press release, it said the global cryptocurrency market, which is currently valued at $3.3 billion, is projected to expand to about $11 billion by 2035. So that's within 9 years. It's going to triple itself. More than that, really. The other interesting point that I found was this sentence, and I would love your thoughts on this in particular. The rise of cryptocurrencies as viable career options is reshaping financial sector perceptions. So I was trying to understand from here, I feel like there's like either I'm not understanding this or there needed to be a few more words to this sentence. Is it that so because I own crypto, I'm like mining it heavily and that is my career path, or that blockchain is opening up more career paths that I'm not aware of? This one I didn't understand it.
Yeah, it is a good question. I would be in your camp. I'm a little bit confused as well, but I would go with the latter of what you said. I feel like maybe it's a lot of the different technologies that are coming out and maybe the ancillary businesses that could be coming across. Now I feel like I'm just sharing buzzwords here, but blockchain and just any of this other crypto technology. Again, I would speculate it's probably not as much mining type of activity, again, unless that's a larger company, because my minimal understanding seems like at this point it's pretty expensive to mine for a lot of the, at least the more popular cryptos. It's more expensive to pay for your electricity bill and cooling costs and all those sorts of things than it is to actually eventually mine the crypto itself. Again, if you're a crypto expert listening, and please bear with me through as I go through that. But yeah, I would think that what you said though, Ali, maybe there's more careers that personally I'm not even aware of. I don't even have tons of speculation there, but I would interpret it the same way as you did.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And yes, if anybody has answers, please feel free to tell us. I don't like not knowing the right answer. But so the fact that it's going to more than triple, increase by like 3.5 times really in 9 years. I mean, on the one hand, that sounds like a lot. And on the other hand, well, it's already grown to 3 billion. And this is at a point that it surpassed. That's like totally fake and scammy. Now we're in the real utilization phase, I think.
Right. Because I think the compounded growth rate for that was like 11 and a half or something percent per year, which to me, I'm not saying that's a small return, but that didn't seem as large as I was actually expecting. I would expect maybe higher predictions. Again, I don't know what all went into that calculation. I'm not an economist and I'm not an expert in crypto, clearly, as we can tell here. But yeah, sometimes you think of crypto and you think, oh, that could maybe double overnight, depending on what particular coin it is, or it's got a lot of volatility and fluctuation. So maybe it's already factoring in potential fluctuation and volatility. But I mean, I say this all the time in financial projections. There's one thing for certain. We know it's not going to be correct. We think it'll probably be directionally correct. It's going to grow, probably. How much? Ask me in 2035. I'll give you the perfect answer, but it's always interesting to see what assumptions and projections are made.
That makes me wonder, are we going to do this podcast in 2035? Are podcasts like going to be a thing in 2035? Or are we going to have found like the next evolution? Because otherwise I feel like I have to save this specific clip, put it in a time capsule, open it up in 9 years and say, Brandon, what do you think?
I don't know. Maybe it'll be our AI twins just doing the entire podcast. We'll just be sitting around hanging out with our AI twins doing this. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. Like, that's interesting. I don't know. I think maybe podcasts get more popular. I don't know, especially the authentic ones when they are real human beings, because I think, again, AI is great at a lot of things, but AI is not going to be great at human connection. Yeah. So I still think I'm really saying always to some degree going to be a demand for human connection, authenticity, whether that's in movies, TV shows. I just can't see us in 10 years exclusively watching AI produced TV series. Like, AI will help the producers, they will help the writers, but AI twins instead of our favorite actors and actresses, I just don't think so.
Yeah, not the same thing. I hear you. I like that crystal ball projection.
Yeah, it's at least my projection. We'll see.
So our last piece of news for this week is from Empathy. We've featured this company before. It's a platform related to loss and grief. They've partnered with Transamerica, which will obviously greatly increase their reach. As a result of this, Transamerica clients will have access to what's called Empathy Loss Support and Empathy Life Vault. The first is a way to help with loss. It's about figuring out things like funeral expenses and claims and probate, among other things. And then the Life Vault is where people can store documents or otherwise prepare their estates in advance. I think that it's great that, first of all, a major company is utilizing this kind of service, because I can imagine how helpful something like that would be especially when you think about something like funeral expenses. Like, there's no basis, at least that I can remember in school, that's like, well, just so you know, like, you should probably have like $1 saved for those. I couldn't tell you what you're supposed to do. So I thought that this was very interesting. I would love to get your thoughts on it, though.
Seems like a great partnership. I mean, especially when we're talking about a life and annuity company, we'll say more focused on the life insurance side here. when someone is going to get delivered that claim check, obviously it's a really trying time, and no amount of death benefit is ever going to quote unquote right the situation, but hopefully it at least alleviates some of the financial stress so that that person can focus more on the grieving process, but also some of those steps or those administrative steps like funerals and other types of arrangements. If basically right when they need this, which is when they would be receiving a benefit from a life insurance policy, also being connected to, hey, by the way, here's resources. Because, right, I mean, off the top of my head, I don't know exactly what the cost of a funeral might be. People are going to have to ask around, but to kind of have one resource, again, right when they need it the most, I think makes a lot of sense from that partnership perspective.
Yeah. Another thing that I thought was good, I would be curious how it works out exactly, but the documentation and whatnot related to estates in advance. So to me, it feels like the more clear that you can say, Betty gets all of my jewelry and so gets all of my baseball cards, and the more clear that delineation is, A, the less family problems there are going to be because you clearly spelled out exactly what you wanted to have happen. And then B, the less that the court needs to figure that out because you just literally said all of it. I would hope that that's how things go. I don't know that that's how things work in practicality.
What you just described is good estate planning. If people follow what you just said, Allie, they have the conversations ahead of time. They pre-plan out, because even say someone has a will and a trust, but if there are certain items where there's a particular family heirloom that the son is going to get or the daughter is going to get, you probably should have that specifically laid out. Again, if possible, the more specific, the better. And then two, another thing that, again, all this is simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. But if, especially we're talking estate planning, maybe for an older couple too, when, again, it's none of us are ever guaranteed tomorrow, but estate planning becomes a bit more important the older you get. But have conversations with a family while everyone is still, again, sometimes doesn't always work. There's all sorts of family dynamics. So this isn't supposed to be prescriptive advice, but really, the TLDR, it's expectation setting. If people have a general sense, hey, this is where you would want to go. Here's where all of the important documents are. We have our will in place. We have our trust, our powers of attorney, beneficiaries are updated. We have all of this estate planning done. Here's where you go and find it. Set those expectations. Again, doesn't solve everything, but it makes it a heck of a lot easier.
And to your point, under that kind of emotional duress, that's probably the first thing that you're like, I know that I'm supposed to do something, or I know that those papers are somewhere, and my grief has stricken me so much, I have no idea where I would even look. So the fact that somebody could spell things out, at least you could take that first step without feeling like I'm just so lost in the emotional grief of everything, on top of the fact that logistically, I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Right. So how can you simplify things again, even pre-plan? I mean, that really is the point of estate planning, because truthfully, estate planning for yourself, you're gone at that point. So it really is, how do you make things as easy as possible on the beneficiaries and your kids, your family, and whoever else is going to be helping handle it. And then, of course, there's some cost issues. If you're able to avoid probate, or if you have a massive, massive net worth, there are estate tax issues that only impacts a small subset of the population. But even for everyone else, definitely important to get estate planning documents in place, because like I said, none of us are ever guaranteed tomorrow. And it's good to have those docs in place.
Yes, it is. So, Brandon, getting back to what we were discussing before, thank you for doing this podcast with me for more than a year. I don't know if we're going to do it for another 9, but I appreciate all that you've done thus far and whatever we will do in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on. You always find great stories and basically let me share my fancy feelings. I love hearing your fancy feelings too on what we talk about. So it's been a lot of fun, and yeah, looking forward to 2026 too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Allie.